So we'd like to welcome to the stage Riley Talbot, a junior at Georgetown, to the stage to do our policy briefing. Riley is the Policy and Outreach Associate for the Catholic Climate Covenant. Welcome, Riley.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. It's so great to be here and be a part of this amazing energy and excitement that you have here today. And I'm so glad that this year's Advocacy Ask includes the Environmental Justice for All Act and the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty. These two policies are so complementary of each other, addressing both the environmental crisis and the social implications of it. As Catholics, our highest commandments are to love God and to love others. And even before we hear that commandment from Jesus, God commands the human family to be stewards of creation and to cultivate and care for it in the beginning in Genesis. Just this month, Pope Francis released a new papal document, Laudate Deum, strengthening the call to action he first promulgated with his encyclical Laudato Si in 2015. In both of these documents, Pope Francis explicitly calls for strong political change that not only prevents further warming, but also addresses the current effects of the climate crisis. He calls us all to heed the science and the signs of the time. The world is irrevocably warming at rates that are unnatural to the traditional cycles of heating and cooling. Right now, we are at a tipping point, and by choosing to act, we can prevent the worst of the climate crisis. It was the burning of fossil fuels that brought us here to this crisis, and it can be by turning away from fossil fuels that we can begin to solve the problem and prevent any future damage. This is why we need a fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty that would call for swift action to end the extraction and burning of fossil fuels. The process of extraction wreaks havoc on the environment. Let me get my slide. Here you see West Virginia, where they're literally cutting tops of mountains off to reach the fossil fuels, destroying mountains, uprooting land to reach the fossil fuels, and then transport them across the country. Then the burning process is releasing carbon dioxide at rates that are disrupting the natural carbon cycle and trapping heat in our atmosphere. We need a treaty that calls for both a rapid transition away from these practices and for a just transition, ensuring that the most vulnerable and those who may rely on the fossil fuel industry for jobs and their livelihoods have the resources they need. Right now, the United States is a leader in emissions, ranking with the second highest carbon dioxide emissions in the world. Let's flip the script and become the leaders in the transition away from fossil fuels. As COP28, a meeting of key climate negotiators, gears up to begin next month, we can ask our politicians to use their influence to make the fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty a part of the conversation. A few months ago in September, I, along with 75,000 other people, let's see if I can get my slide to show you, marched in New York City at the March to End Fossil Fuels. Here it is, where we gathered to put pressure on the United Nations to make a change. We gathered young and old, faith-led or not, to fight for our future. And tomorrow, as you all go into the halls of Congress, keep putting that pressure on our leaders to prevent any further warming and to keep us under the goal of 1.5 degrees Celsius warming. As we begin to see the effects of the warming that has already occurred, it becomes evident that the effects are not evenly distributed, but are highly concentrated around poor communities of color. In my own home state of Louisiana, this is most evident in a place known as Cancer Alley, where there are 130 plants and industrial facilities in a 100-mile stretch of land, where the percentage of Black residents is 8% higher than the state average, and where there are high levels of poverty. The people who live here, like Sharon Levine, pictured here, who's the founder of a community organizing group called Rise St. James, are put in what's called a sacrifice zone, where people don't have access to clean air, clean water, and a healthy environment. Members of these communities care and organize around these environmental justice issues, but don't always have access to the political power or influence they need to change these unjust structures. The Environmental Justice for All Act does just that by confronting the problems that are most pressing to these frontline environmental justice communities. In writing the bill, over 300 community voices were represented and incorporated into the text. The Environmental Justice for All Act will expand the ability for communities to get justice when they are forced into these conditions, and will codify the right to clean air, clean water, and a healthy environment, just as it should be. It also requires that in permitting, industries consider the cumulative and long-term impacts of power plants and emissions to protect people like those who live in Cancer Alley from having to live in places where the air is unbreathable and the water undrinkable. Just like the story of those in Cancer Alley, each and every one of us in this room has a story to tell about why this is important to us. For me, I'm fueled by my faith and my love for God's creation, all of it, from the smallest animal to the most exotic plant, and of course, all of my human family. Take whatever story and motivation you have and share that with the world, and even more importantly, share that with your politicians. Remind them that the future is ours as young people, and we are depending on them for it to remain that way. Many of you may know this prayer, popularized by St. Ignatius, the Sushipre prayer, which reads, "Take, Lord, and receive all my liberty, my memory, my understanding, and my entire will, all I have and call my own. You have given all to me. To you, Lord, I return it. Everything is yours. Do with it what you will. Give me only your love and your grace. That is enough for me." One of the most beautiful ways we can serve God is by giving our strengths and our gifts to answering his call and to filling the needs of the world. The way you are all going to do that tomorrow is through political engagement. Together with one voice and through God's love and God's grace, you will all use your God-given gifts to advocate for a rapid and just transition and to guarantee of rights to clean air and water for all people. What you're doing is amazing, so go in peace. Thank you.